All right, so what I'm going to do is I was emailing someone this morning stuff about the exam. Is that person here female? I can't remember. Okay. Okay. Well, I think there was one thing you might have been doing wrong on one of your things. I'm not going to tell you exactly what it was, but I realize I am going to review something about pivot tables that might not be obvious, and we'll help you with question 1. Okay. And then I'll answer general questions about exam 1, and then we'll talk about the paper. And I'll give you like an outline of how you can write the paper and stuff. So remember, you can go ahead and download that draft and start putting in answers, but then tomorrow I'm going to put in the real test, which should look exactly like the draft that's up, unless y'all ask a question today that makes me feel like I need to add something to it. And that's the one you put your real answers in and upload. All right. So what I'm doing is I'm going to use the pivot table data that you did for homework 6 and show you one thing that will help you. I'm probably guessing like the tutorial, the pivot table was pretty clear, but once you go to a new set of data, you get a bit uncomfortable because you're not exactly sure things are right. And so what we're going to do, we're going to go over how to answer question 1 on the exam, but it's just using a different type of data. So on question 1, you have like 4 different types of wheat products, I believe, and then 2 different types of stores. And I'm asking you average prices for different scenarios. Well, the data you used for homework 6 had 4 different types of steaks and 4 different types of stores. Right? And so I think, does anyone have exam 1 in front of them? But I think so one question would be, what is the average price of organic whole wheat flour at Walmart versus organic whole wheat flour at Sprouts? Does that sound right? Yeah, well, like question 1 is what? Question 1 and 2 are the 2 prices and then the premium, right? Okay, so that's like this. We have the type of the product here. Instead of organic whole wheat flour and stuff, it's steak types, and then we have store types. And so here we find that the ribeye at the specialty store, its average price was $15.95. And the average price of the ribeye at the supermarket was $9.88. And that's probably pretty easy to read off of it. But one thing that may be a little confusing to you, and I think this may be where you may have done something wrong if I remember right, is I think maybe it's the last question. Does it ask like what is the average price at all the stores?
Yeah, it asks what the average price of
Across both stores? Okay. Okay. And so maybe the corollary would be this. Let me do this. Suppose in this example, I asked you, instead of what is the price of ribeye at a discount store versus a specialty store versus a supermarket store, I asked you the average price of ribeye across all stores. That's what this here tells you, ribeye total. That's the average price across all the stores. And there's a different way of doing this that may look like it would be right, but isn't. So suppose I organize this a little different. Notice how steak type is in column A and steak store type is in column B. Suppose I change that by changing the order of the rows here. Now I've got store type over here, and so it's still going to tell me like the price of the ribeye at the specialty store, price of a T-bone at the discount store. But suppose you had it ordered like this, and I asked you the average price of a ribeye across all specialty stores. What you wouldn't want to do, and I think you may have done this, is you wouldn't want to say, okay, here's the price here. Here's the price of the ribeye at the other store. Here's the price of the ribeye here. And here's the price of the ribeye at this final store. And so you got the average price at each store. And then, I mean, it's kind of deceptive. It seems logical that I did come in here and say, let me take the average of all those. Okay. That would, if it gives you the right answer, I think it would just be lucky. That's not the way of doing it. And the reason is this. When you want the average price of the ribeye across all stores, it's like you want the price at each store, every observation divided by the total number of stores and stuff. But this was the 7.94 was the price at the discount store. The 15.95 was the price at the specialty store. There may be a lot more discount stores than specialty stores. The reason using this average of $10.48 as the average price of a ribeye would be wrong is that it counts this observation just as much as that observation. It's just doing an average of 4 numbers, right? But in reality, there may be 10,000 discount stores, but only 20 specialty stores. And so if there were 10,000 discount stores and only 20 specialty stores, that number should really count a lot more in the average. Does that make sense? And so to make sure you get the right number, you'll want to reorganize it. To look like this, such that now, if you want the average price of the ribeye across all the stores, you do it like this, so it just says ribeye total, and it's across all the stores right there. And this number is not an average of those numbers. That one number is the average of every single ribeye observation. So it's not just 4 numbers being averaged, it's a bunch of numbers being averaged. Does that make sense?
I do have a question.
Yeah.
So on the Excel, when you put it in, mine was not putting totals for each store. It was just putting a grand total at the bottom. How do you get it to change that? So if I was just looking for how it says the Selena flour, how would I get it just to say a total for that?
How to get it like this? If I understand what you're saying right, it's the way this monitor is, it's kind of hard to see. See how under rows here I have stake type on top and then store type? Whatever's on top will go all the way to the left and will give you ribeye total. And you know, and what you can do, you can after class you can bring me your computer and I can work with you to make sure to do it. Yeah. And so, you know, when it comes to doing this stuff, you know, I won't tell you whether you have the right answer or not, but if you're wanting to like show me your computer and ask me if you're interpreting it right or something like that, I can do that. Okay. Do we have any other questions about exam 1?
Do you want to go over utility? Number 3.
Sure, sure. Okay, let's see. So she's asking about number 3 on exam 1. And this was from the lecture on I guess that's lecture 3, what we call lecture 3 on August 31st. So again, these should be the slides on August 31st. On number 3, what you're doing is you're given a question almost identical to this. I think this exact screenshot is on there. But instead of using these scores, you have to look up the scores for you. You have to go and download. Remember those 3 data sets you have to download? The third one is a small data set, and it just gives you the score to use on those. And then what you have to do is basically exactly what we did in this class. You have to use the scores, and you have to estimate a utility function for the regular ribeye, meaning you have to solve for the value of A and the value of B, and everybody's A and B will differ. Then you have to estimate the value of A and B for the guaranteed tender ribeye. And so you get 2 different utility functions, just using basic algebra to solve. And then you have to say, I think the question even asked, does it say the price of the ribeye is $8? What's that?
It does. It says if regular ribeye sells for $8 per pound.
Yeah. And then it says, what is the maximum price this person would pay for a guaranteed tender ribeye? So it's exactly like this. And so you have to do the same thing we do here, is you find what level of price. You plug in a price of 8 for regular ribeye, figure out what price of the tender ribeye causes the 2 utilities to equal one another. And whatever that price is, that's the maximum willingness to pay for that person. So it's exactly like this. The only difference is you have your own unique scores right there. Yeah.
And we don't have to make a chart, right? We just use the numbers from our data sheet. Do we have to
That's
do
right.
like that?
Yeah, you just have to plug in the numbers. I think you have to plug in the numbers in the utility function and indicate the maximum willingness to pay that you solve for. There's no charts to make. That's right. Yeah. And by the way, because I assigned everybody unique scores here, I set up a computer program to do it. If for some reason you feel like there's just something really wrong with the scores, like I know there isn't, but like suppose you had a negative score right there. That just doesn't seem right? If something popped up like that, just let me know. But they should look reasonable, meaning as you increase the price of the same steak, the score should go down, and the guaranteed tender should have a higher score than the regular ribeye at the same price. I tried to basically make it as close to this as possible, but just where you have to actually calculate your own numbers to get the right answer. Is that what you were asking?
Yep, that was perfect.
Okay. Perfect. You hear that? Perfect. Any other stuff about exam 1? Okay. So talk about the project. I was going to go to the chalkboard and write some stuff. It won't be a lot. You can just type it in your computer. Is that okay? All right. What I'm mainly going to do is talk about give you an idea of how you can organize your paper. And after I was talking to students at the end of class, I kind of made me think of what I think are pretty helpful hints for you on what you can do. Okay. So the project has a lot of writing to it. You can have lots of figures in there too. And we can spend some time talking about how to make nice figures and pretty little diagrams and stuff. But one big difference between exam 1 and the project, both which require writing, is who the audience is. So on exam 1, on question 4, the essay questions, you remember who you're writing for? Me. And so you know what I've been teaching you, so you know you can use those words and not have to explain them and stuff. That's absolutely not the case for the class project. Even though, yes, I am grading it, and there will be a tendency to try to write it towards me because you know I'm grading it, I'm going to be grading it from the viewpoint as if I'm a different type of person reading it. And this is really important. So the target audience here is people in your company. Some of these people don't know you or your project. When I say they don't know your project, what that means is they may be given this report that you wrote, but they're going to pick it up and read it without knowing anything about it. So these aren't necessarily the people who asked you to write this project. And so as we'll see in a minute when we talk about intro, you've got to make sure right away you tell them what the purpose of this project is and what you're trying to do with it. They may not know anything about food preference research. So whereas we're going to be studying focus groups and surveys and how to do them, and Dr. Van Overbeek is going to be talking about how to do taste tests and stuff, they don't necessarily know how to do those things. They don't understand consumer psychology like you do. But one thing they do know is corporate lingo. So you're not writing towards one like a freshman in college who may be really, really smart but may have spent no time studying business, doesn't know any corporate lingo or anything. These are people who have been in the corporate world, and so they have their own little annoying types of language. Like instead of price, they tend to say price point. They know generally what a focus group is. They know... they generally know what surveys are. They know there's a thing like taste tests. They're used to talking about consumers and market share like that. And so one very important part of the paper is I want to read it and believe someone who graduated 4 years ago with our degree would be able to pick it up and be able to understand most of it. But they'll also realize that you are someone with industry experience too, or a business major. They know you're not writing it for a fifth grader. And most of y'all are seniors in agribusiness because y'all been exposed to a lot of business lingo and stuff. So I think if you read it or one of your friends read it and you say, I would understand this even if I didn't take Bailey's class, and it also still sounds smart to me, sounds like something a business person would say, then I think you're writing with the right style. Certainly, the goal is not to impress with beautiful, eloquent writing with lots of adjectives and stuff like that. What you're seeking to do is describe something and to be understood and to do it as succinctly as possible. Business people do not like wasting time. They want the most amount of information they can get in the smallest amount of time possible. So, for example, when you're talking about consumers, and if you have a particular type of consumer that you think you should be studying, you can say the target market. Most people in business, if you say target market, most people know what that is. And you sound smart, or at least like someone who's been in the business world long enough to pick up on the lingo. Before I write the next thing, let me just kind of describe a general version of the paper. So remember, the purpose of the paper is you're outlining a research methodology. There's this prototype food product, and you're describing how consumer research should be conducted to further explore it for the company, to both aid in the design of the product and to see if it's a good idea to try and sell it. And so we'll use Haley Hooten can't be here, but I was talking to her on Zoom before she came. Her product is a generic / cheaper version of an existing product. That's something we haven't taught yet, I don't think. And her product name is Ice Stop. Label design is a popsicle. Outer sleeve to be light blue with the words Ice Stop. 12 popsicles to the bag. She's got some information about what the ingredients would be and stuff. Okay, and it's medicinal, meaning natural medicated ice pop created to stop your pain for like tooth pains. I didn't know something like that already existed. But she wants to target market to dentist offices and other businesses where mouth pain is relevant. So this is a place where when your mouth hurts, popsicles already taste good. Maybe she's got some other pain reliever in it. And she said it's a generic, cheaper version of an existing product. So what she's trying to do is say there's this product out there, and I'm going to provide better value to people by basically selling them the same thing but being able to do it cheaper. Right. So let's take hers. And so what she wants to do with this research methodology is she wants to say, well, first thing, and I think this is a good rule of thumb, always write it as if someone's going to pick it up and not have any idea about what they're about to read. And so that means right away, you've got to tell them what the paper is about. And I'm going to write some of this stuff in a minute. I'm just kind of talking first. So right away, you need to have something short, sweet, but really informative, telling them what this thing is, what your paper is about. And since this is all about a product that is a prototype, meaning it has some design features, there's some ideas about it, but it hasn't been fully designed yet, you need to describe what that prototype is and be very clear about it. And then the other sections are about the types of research you recommend the company do to help design the product and to see if it will be a good product. And so maybe the first section would be the intro. This can even, it can be a good full paragraph, it can be a couple sentences. But it's important for the person to know whether they want to read it or not. Some people would pick it up and they see this, okay, this isn't my area, I don't need anything to do with this. This is for someone else to read. For other people, someone in marketing or something, this may be very important. You tell them right away what this is. And if they're interested, then you need to make sure the paper flows from there and does what you say it'll do. So this can be an easy part to write. Usually what I do for something like this, I just do a quick draft of the intro first, and then usually the intro is the thing I actually write last, because I know what the rest of the paper says, and in this intro, I have to tell them what the paper is going to say. So I have to finish the paper before I can tell them what it's going to say. And now I'm going to write this. Whenever you get lost about what you're trying to do with the paper, just remember, it's to design a research project. You can call it a project, you can call it a method, but what you're doing is you're saying how something should be done for a prototype food product. And when we say prototype for Haley here, it means so she's got a name for the product name iStop, but it's a prototype, so that name might change. So the name doesn't have to be permanent. And she's got a target audience, dentist offices and other places, but that may change. Everything about the design may change, but you do have to stick with the same basic idea. So this is a popsicle that's supposed to help people with mouth pain, so you can't just all of a sudden change it to chunky noodle soup. You have to stick with the same basic idea, but know that the details could be changed. So for a prototype food product, to aid in product design, and assess its profitability. And when I say assess its profitability, meaning you don't have to figure out how much profits you think it would make. This is a hypothetical thing. You can't do that. What you're designing is you're trying to figure out a way you can do things like focus groups and surveys or tests as a way for the company to see, might this make us money or not? Or does this look like a failure? So on one hand, you're wanting the product to succeed. You're doing this research to help develop a new product, to aid in the product design. At the same time, you're trying to determine whether any product design would be a good idea or not. Well, I said you're not trying to determine whether it will be or not. You're developing research that would answer the question. So if it involves a focus group, you're not conducting the focus group, you're describing how the focus group should be conducted. And of course, since this is what you're doing in your paper, you should say it in the intro. The purpose of this research would be to provide information that will help facilitate an effective product design while also determining its profitability to the company. And then next, describe the prototype. You're evaluating this prototype, and you should just assume like this prototype was given to you. You may have come up with it, someone else may have come up with it, but you're starting from this thing, and so you obviously have to describe it. In terms of Haley here, she wants to describe what the purpose of this thing is, exactly what the product is, a popsicle. You know, she talks about exactly how the sleeve is designed, 12 popsicles to come in one box or bag, the color of the packaging, the ingredients, the slogan, the target audience. So you've got this one big idea of what this project is, and so you definitely want to set it up and explain it. And doing that and doing a really good job of explaining all those things, which y'all did in your first project assignment, I thought y'all did a good job. That's going to really help you with the other stuff. So we're talking about, you know, what is it? Whether there are any close substitutes. Most of y'all chose to do a new variety of an existing product, so when you're describing what it is and whether any close substitutes, you describe there's all these other varieties out here, we're thinking of this other new variety. Any product design. Considerations like the brand name, packaging, things like target audience, and of course there, you don't have to, but you can have illustrations, figures, pictures, diagrams showing what it is. And everybody when they're reading something, they like pictures, they like figures, they like diagrams. It breaks things up, it makes it more interesting. So I think this would be a great place to have something there. Even if it wasn't, some of you may be able to put like exactly what the prototype looks like. If not, you can have a diagram showing a container and all its attributes and something like that. Matthew Drindle here. Okay, just say yo if I say your name. Laura Fairby. Okay. What's that? You don't want me to do yours? Okay, that's okay. Oh, but yours is awesome. Why would you be embarrassed about that? That's making me hungry. Are you just shy? Tarrantine, is that you over there? Okay. So Bryce Tarrantine's, his was pizza pods. Pizza pods are generic equivalent to Totino's pepperoni pizza rolls. So he's doing a generic, cheaper version of existing product. Sent you just a little pot of pizza sauce, pepperoni bits, and cheese wrapped in a layer of breading that come pre-cooked and frozen. So like the Tide Pods your generation's been eating, except this is pizza. Very similar. And maybe this will be the first pizza rolls that are actually warm on the inside and the outside when you cook it. Right? And so Bryce, what you can do is when you set up this prototype, you're describing what the competitor is, right? So you're saying, so you got pizza pods, and you say you think you like the name better than pizza rolls. And you're wanting to do it cheaper. And so what you've done there, by describing the prototype and its differences to other products, that's immediately kind of telling you what the research can do. Right? So for instance, he's saying he likes the name pizza pods better than pizza rolls. Well then, if that's what you're saying in the prototype, then describe some research you can do to see if other people feel the same. He also says that it will appeal not only to consumers' taste buds, but also their wallets. And so one thing you can do there is say, okay, to what extent do people actually want cheaper pizza rolls? I mean, they're probably already pretty cheap at the beginning. And so you can design some survey questions to see how responsive people are to price. So that was pretty easy, right? So right there you can say, well, what Tarantine can do is he can do some focus groups where you present people with a product design called pizza pods, and you have a whole discussion about what they think of when they hear pizza pods. And then, like after exam 1, what we're going to go into is we're going to start talking about focus groups. And so that's when you'll see, and the whole textbook has big sections on it. So then you can spend a lot of time talking about exactly how your focus group should be set up to do that. So just that right there, you can have 4 pages easily. And then you have the price thing. So you remember the graph we had up about number 3 from the homework where we said how much more would they pay for guaranteed tender steaks? You can imagine the same thing there, except in the questions, sometimes there's pizza rolls, sometimes there's pizza pods, and you have different prices, and you're asking them to rate how likely they are to buy it. And you're using that to see when you sell some of the stuff at a lower price, how much more enticing is it actually? And there's other survey questions you could do. You don't have to just compare it to pizza rolls. You could give them a number of different dining things to choose from at different prices, and change the price of the pizza pods to see how that changes. You could ask questions about like, one, okay, well you want to see how many people might eat this, right? Well, how many people actually eat pizza rolls? So you can design a survey to actually ask people how often you eat pizza rolls. Do they think that pizza rolls are already cheap or not? And it may be they already consider them so cheap that if you went a little cheaper, they're like, has my life come to this? I'm looking for cheaper pizza rolls now. If I just really hit hard rock bottom now. And so that's your paper, Bryce. That's not that hard, right? And the secret there is to be very clear and specific about how the research should be done using the stuff in the textbook. Is Tristan here? Hi, Tristan. Pishagoga? How do you say your last name? Oh, that's not Tristan I was thinking. You're Tristan Rouse? Rao? How do you spell the last name? R-W-E-L-L. Okay, Tristan Rao. Okay. Can I talk about yours? All right. She has a new variety of an existing product, a new ranch dressing. So grocery stores are lacking a good ranch, you think? Okay. The ranch will be a new variety by Hidden Valley Ranch, being now they have the best pre-made ranch. It'll be called Hidden Valley Ranch Good Ranch. I don't know if that'd be, that kind of makes the other products look like crap, like saying, well, here's some ranch, but here's some actually good ranch you can sell. Unless they're your competitors, then I guess you can do that. He was like, yeah. New Hidden Valley Ranch, the ranch that won't make you throw up in your mouth. The label will look just like the original brand, but may have to be refrigerated because it's good, fresh ingredients. That's what you're selling, right? I mean, that's kind of interesting. Like when someone goes and see that this dressing has to be refrigerated, that gives it a whole new look. It makes them, even if it doesn't really have to be, it makes them think, well, this stuff must be fresher. People will fall for that. I mean, y'all are out there buying bottled water. Okay. So it's a new variety of an existing product. What she's got there in the prototype, she says there's regular Hidden Valley Ranch, and then we've got Better Ranch. And, you'll develop the prototype some more. Maybe you'll talk about why, like this fresher ingredients, something like that. And again, just like with turn times, the way you set up the prototype and the way you compare it to other product, it's going to answer the question what kind of research you should do. And so first you say, okay, let's say that it has to be refrigerated. Well, then I like that idea. So maybe you can do some survey questions or focus groups about what consumers think if they see a ranch dressing needs to be refrigerated. Some might look at that and say, ooh, that's kind of intriguing, must be fresh and stuff. Other people might say, I ain't going to buy a ranch dressing that has to be refrigerated before I can even open it. And it's okay to have both, but the degree to which you get different comments tells you what kind of market share it may have. Okay? So all you've done is she's got this one idea about a ranch dressing that always need to be refrigerated. So you concentrate on that and say, how do we do consumer research to say how people will interpret this, how will they like it? And then, of course, with yours, this product won't really work, I'm guessing, unless it actually is a Better Ranch dressing. And so for yours, Dr. Van Opperbeek is going to talk about how to do different taste tests. And so I can see two taste tests that you do there. One is you first give people a blind taste test with your ranch and regular ranch, and first just see if they can even tell the difference. And there's a really neat test called a duo trio test that Deb will go over, and so you can talk about how that will go. And then you can also say, okay, what if we let people taste the regular ranch from the regular ranch dressing, and then they also taste your ranch where they have to go get it out of the refrigerator and open it for the first time. And so you're making sure they understand it needs to be refrigerated for the first time. You could just tell them, but there's something different about when someone has to actually do an action regarding it. They pay more attention. It's different. And then, how we had those scores about how likely you are to buy different types of steaks? Well, you can have the same kind of scores, but say, now taste both of these ranch dressing. How much do you like each one? And those are things called hedonic scores, and they can go from like dislike extremely to like extremely. And you've got a full paper right there. I'm basically doing this for y'all. Don't you wish I'd chosen yours now? You got to come up with a lot of these ideas on your own. Now, of course, there's a lot of other things you could do too. I didn't talk about internet surveys. You could do those too. There's consumer interviews you could do. Let's see, Bryce, for yours, we didn't talk about taste tests, but you could do that, right? You're going to have to make a trade-off You don't want to come up and say we're going to do every single test there is, unless you have a really good reason. You don't want to just suggest like just one easy thing to do. And so you got to find an in between. And I'm not going to tell you how long the paper is, and I'm not going to tell you how many things you got to do, and you're going to hate me for that. But that's because what you got to do with the paper, the important thing is to come up with some things you need to do and justify it well. Not just describe how you do it, but justify it. And you are welcome to pitch me ideas about different things you can do. I'll say whether I like it or not, and whether I think it's I won't say like, you should definitely not do that, you should do this. I'll listen to it and I'll say, this is good for these reasons, I don't like it for these reasons. Okay, so that means what should the rest of the paper look like? We just have two really good examples here. Let's see, what's a way to say this? So we have an intro, we've described the prototype, and so then you have the section on like the recommended research protocol, we can say. Everybody likes papers with sections, to help you read it. So I'm just giving you some examples you could do. So after you describe the prototype, you could have your recommended research protocol, and maybe the first section under that is the research objectives. And this is here you can, I'd say do it like you're making recommendations, not like you have to do this. You can view it like you're internal consultant for the company or outside consultant for the company. You're saying, based on what I see here, this is what I recommend. So like your research objective, Bryce, you could say one research objective would be to evaluate how people perceive the brand label pizza pods. Another research objective can be for you, are consumers wanting cheaper pizza rolls? Will they sell? Two research objectives is fine, because both of those you can have long sections about how to do them. And so for Tristan, one of your research objectives could be, you could have one, try to evaluate first whether people view ranch as kind of low quality, whether they want a higher quality one, what they would think of dressing that needs to be refrigerated, what they think of your brand name, what they actually think of the taste. I'm guessing most of for every single product you have here, you could do a taste test. You could do a focus group, you could do an internet survey. But you specify those research objectives, and those are like the main questions you're trying to ask. Then you could have recommended methods for each objective. So about the Bryce's, if he says one of his objective is to evaluate the brand label pizza pods, then maybe here one of your research methods is the focus group to see what people think of that label, or an internet survey. If the other one is the taste of it, you can say, here's how we would do the taste test. And, my advice for in the textbook excerpt, there's a whole section on focus groups. There's a whole section on how to do certain interviews. There's a whole section on how to ask some internet survey questions, and we've done a lot of that. There's a whole section on how to do taste tests. You don't need any more than what's in there. All you need to do is read the sections, think about it, and think of how would I use this method for my particular research question. And so, like so Bryce, if you did an internet survey, what you'd want there is you'd want to describe the questions, why you're asking the questions, what you're trying to achieve with them, and you just have to make sure they're in line with the objectives. And there you can have little sections where you actually show what the questions would look like. You can come up with, if you wanted to, you could make the whole research program one survey draft. Say, I recommend an internet survey to answer these questions, and this is what I recommend the survey draft to look like. If it's a focus group, you can't just, focus group, you'll see, is not just a list of questions, it's a conversation. And so what you would have to describe there are the general rules about how the focus groups would be conducted. If, Tristan, you do a taste test of your ranch dressing to see if it's really good, you need to describe things like exactly how the products will be presented, how they'll be given to people. And you just go to the textbook and see how it says it should be done. And don't plagiarize, but it's telling you how to do it. And, just write it using your example. Is this helpful, Lauren? Well, at least you're honest. Shrug your shoulders at me. I'm a professor. Tristan, is this helpful? Oh, there we go. See how nice that was, Lauren? Lauren going to be faking COVID from now on. All right, so you have the intro, you've got your description of the prototype, you've got the research objectives and how you do it, and then what's left? Yeah, some kind of conclusion sections, okay. This is a little bit different. You don't, on a thing like this, hopefully you've written it where it's really easy to read. And ideally for something like this, it'd be nice if you had the kind of figures and diagrams where someone could just, don't you love it when you can pick up a paper and just look at the figures, you don't have to read anything? You want it almost like this, where someone can do that if they want to. And then if they want to go in and read more in depth, they can do that too. And so I don't think you need a conclusion where you just repeat stuff. Class is almost over, don't worry. I'm just kidding. What were you saying?
The Dodgers versus the Padres.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I never watched baseball until Facebook started showing me highlights. And now all I see is highlights. So baseball, according to me, looks like a fantastic sport where stuff is always happening. So who are you pulling for?
Well, I'm from Los Angeles, so
Oh, really?
I like the Dodgers.
Okay. Cool. You from in the city, LA, or are you kind of in the suburbs, or?
Our ranch is outside of the city, but I live in LA.
Okay. Very cool. I've been there one time. I went to go swim in the ocean, thinking it was going to be like the Atlantic Ocean. Good God, it was cold. It's so much colder than the Atlantic Ocean. I couldn't stay in there. Have you been to the Atlantic Ocean? Not like Jersey Shore Atlantic, but like South Carolina Atlantic.
No.
Okay. You'll like Atlantic better. Not at Jersey Shore, but.
Still live in Hawaii. I like it.
Did you really?
Yeah, I went to school at UH.
Did you really? How long?
I did 1 semester.
Why'd you come here?
I actually went there and came back. I did student exchange.
Really? Wow. We should have you do like a little presentation to the class sometime. Yeah. We can have a day when you present something and Lauren comes and tells us a little bit about herself. We'll have a what's her name? Lauren Fairby Appreciation Day in class one time. Okay, so instead of a conclusions, you can have maybe a section something like further considerations. Which maybe some advice on interpreting some of the results and using them. Weaknesses of the method. You know, if you're doing this for a company, you always want to protect yourself a little bit because things might not go exactly as you plan, and you don't want to make it seem like your fault. So, like, I don't know, maybe Tristan, suppose you, okay, further consideration. Suppose you actually do one of these taste tests where people are trying to see if they can even tell the difference between the two. What if they try what y'all think is this great ranch dressing and they can't even tell the difference? Then maybe have some suggestions here about what that means. And so maybe Tristan does one taste test where it's a blind taste test where they don't see the label, and another taste test where people see that it's this premium ranch dressing. And in the second one, where they see the label that says premium, they like it better, but in the blind taste test, they don't. Here in further considerations, you can tell them that's actually quite normal. It can happen. Sometimes people don't really recognize something as superior unless they have external cues telling them that. Sometimes the quality of the product is driven almost exclusively by the packaging. And so it's just a thing to, it's like an ending where you're helping them put everything in perspective, weaknesses about it, stuff like that. How much time's left in the game? Okay. So if we left now, you'd have plenty of time to get home and actually.
Don't worry.
Okay. Any questions about this or anything? Okay, let's give Lauren a big round of applause for participating in today's class. We're so glad to have her here. Okay, so I'll email you tomorrow when the exam goes up. Just let me know if we need to chat. I love you all. Have a great weekend. Let me know if I can help.